All right, I think I got this thing working. This is the Talky podcast where we talk about things that we know about. Me and my buddy Mike Slack here. I'm Jake Fisher. We talk about things that we know about, like sales. We're both kind of sales professionals, marketing, technology, business strategy, entrepreneurship. I really enjoy entrepreneurship as well. And also how those things interact. I will warn you, we also talk about some things we probably don't know much about. So
Absolutely.
You might get Jake explained, and I apologize ahead of time for that.
Can we rename? Wait a second. We need to rename the podcast. Jake Explained. Getting Jake Explained.
Listen to a middle-aged white man explain concepts he knows very little about.
A middle-aged, partially inebriated white man tell you about how things are in the real world.
That's right. I'm going to tell you how the cow ate the cabbage.
Oh, my goodness. Cows eat grass. They don't eat cabbage, do they? Are you Jake explaining me right now?
I'm Jake explaining you right now. I'm telling you I might be gaslighting you just a little bit, yeah. Hey, we're online at talkypod.com and, of course, everywhere that the finest podcasts are consumed. We have the regular, normal trigger warning that is Mike's favorite part of this whole process, and that is there might be an occasional cuss word in this program. It's not the central theme. It's not in the center of what we do, but occasionally a word, an utterance comes out, and it just is what it is.
It just is what it fucking is. It is.
Always. You always do that.
That's all. It's what it is.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It is.
And you're triggering me right now.
I'm trying to lob you the softball, you know. Hey, so Mike, you can find Mike at LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/Slack Mike. Again, linkedin.com/in/Slack Mike. I am on Twitter. My official Twitter account, Jake Fisher OFCL, as in Jake Fisher Official, OFCL.
Very
so that's the boring professional Twitter account. The non-boring account that only nominally belongs to me is something else, and I'll give it at the end. So
okay, yeah,
awesome.
That's the one people need. That's what people.
Yeah,
need.
that's where the nonsense happens. So for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So are you reading something right now, Mike?
Well, I am. I'm listening to the audiobook for Neil deGrasse Tyson's new book, Cosmic Queries. And my understanding is that this book is made of, they've got a show, Cosmic Queries, I guess. And this book is made up of some of the most interesting questions, or maybe most popular questions that have been asked of them during this show. And so it's Neil deGrasse Tyson reading it, and then another, one of the authors or guest hosts reading it. And so he'll read kind of a statement or interesting fact, and she'll read a question, and then kind of the response. And so I've been listening to this, and some of this is things that you probably learned in, science class in high school or college, right? But I'll tell you what, Jake, like I don't think I'm a dumb person, right? I don't think I am. No. However, can I tell you what I've never been able to wrap my mind around?
Okay.
This scientific concept.
What is it?
I think they're lying to us. Which is, have you heard of like this idea? It's a classic science experiment having to do with gravity and mass, and you drop two objects like a feather and a bowling ball, and they supposedly fall at the same rate.
That's right.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
That's
bullshit. That doesn't happen. Drop a bowling ball and a feather, they don't drop at the same rate.
No.
And I don't understand it. I know that there's something about wind resistance. I know there's something about gravity affecting things in some way. I actually don't understand it. And so I feel dumb because they say that, and then I move on, and I know I should get it, and I know I'm not dumb, but about this one particular thing, I'm pretty dumb.
Yeah, I don't. You're talking physics, and I'm not. I got nothing. The question that I in this scenario, talking about the scientists.
Wait, you're not going to Jake explain this to me? I need a Jake explain right now.
I am. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to Jake explain. I'm going to tell you that the question that's much more important is why the scientist Neil Tyson insists on calling himself the grass.
Well, I think we know the answer
how
to
did
that,
he get
Jake.
that nickname, Neil deGrasse Tyson? What's he doing? What's he growing in his closet's what I want to know.
He certainly has a lot of energy, right? And you got to appreciate any person, man, woman, who, he's not a sprite young lad, right? He's getting, he's
been around.
He's been around for a while. Yeah. Man, that guy has energy. You got to appreciate that enthusiasm, right? There's people who have energy that's anxiety driven. There's people who have passion. He has passion, regardless of whether or not the bowling ball and the leaf fall at the same rate. which I think is bullshit. He has passion, and I like that.
Oh my gosh, my wife loves Neil deGrasse Tyson. She's a big fan of his, and just because she's a science educator, and administrator, and so she thinks he's the bee's knees.
Well, maybe she can explain to me why a leaf and a bowling ball fall at the same rate.
I'll find out. I just don't think that's true, though. Is that something that people like? That is this something that they said? Neil deGrasse Tyson said that a bowling ball and a feather or leaf or whatever fall at the same speed.
Here's the problem. I'm too dumb probably to even set it up right. I don't know.
You know who knows? I'll tell you who knows.
Ask Jeeves.
Yeah, exactly.
Ask Jeeves.
Bowling ball and leaf. Okay, let's see.
Does anything come up?
No, the very first thing when you put bowling ball and leaf, the very first thing that comes up is on the ball sparkle marijuana leaf.
Oh yeah, right.
Bowling balls for weed, I guess. I don't know. That's really interesting.
I feel like this right here deserves to be its own episode where we just tear this apart. We just tear the shit out of this.
We should, and so I'm gonna just check. Okay. Why do a bowling ball and a feather fall at the same rate? People also ask on Google. Spoiler. The answer is that they will all fall at the exact same rate. Though some objects like feathers seem to fall slower because of air resistance, the objects both stay in unison as they descend more than 30 feet, smashing into the wooden crate below at exactly the same time in beautiful slow motion. Yeah,
I don't believe it. I need to do this experiment for myself. This is one of those situations where I don't believe things sometimes. Yeah. Or I don't understand things until I kinetically, physically do them. I'm such a visual learner.
Seeing is believing, man.
And kinetic learner. Yes, absolutely. So I need to do this experiment so that I will be less dumb, because right now I'm still doubting Michael right now.
I'm gonna ask I'll ask Kristen. I'll ask my wife when she gets home tonight. I'll see what she has to say. So
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm here for you. So I think
it's gonna lower her opinion of me, but I don't know if that was higher.
What are you drinking there? What's in your little glass there?
Jake, I've been drinking the same kind of drink since the beginning, which is tequila. Well, nice. I was drinking Reposado tequila. Now I'm drinking Añejo tequila primarily.
Good for you.
So, yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's a new brand. I don't remember what it's called. Viva Mexico or something.
Awesome. Cool. I'm drinking water right now, but I did last night have a really lovely Malbec red wine. I'm exploring my red wines.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a Malbec. Just had one glass of Malbec with a little bit of food, and it was good. So good.
Why did you describe your food as if like you're getting rations?
It was because
one glass and a little.
I'm going to tell you why. I'll tell you why. It was because we are very familiar with the place that you and we have happy houred at multiple times.
Yes.
So that's where I was, and they have these. You know how they have these lovely small dishes, is what they call them. They're kind of like small plates, kind of like the. They're like tapas. Yeah, like it's Spanish. And so I got the patatas bravas there, the small. So I had a little small plate and a little glass of wine.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Man, I haven't been there in probably hours. We should go back.
It's been at least an hour. That's awesome. So I think we're like our appointed topic here are our own personal technology firsts. Is that right? Is that what you're thinking?
I think that'll be fun. Yes, it is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, yeah. So the first kind of technology first, to go through the list here is first computer.
Yeah.
And I think our faithful listeners know that, I'm about in my mid 30s. I think you're in your
late 40s
somewhere, right?
I'm in my late 40s. Yes.
Late 40s. Right. Uh-huh. So we were at different stages of our life, probably when we had our first computer experiences. Right. Yep. Also consistent with the theme of today, you're a little bit probably smarter than I am in general, right? And I'm a little dumber in general. So you probably even had experiences earlier in life than I did. So what was your first computer experience? How old were you, and what happened?
So I was in second grade, and it was really cool. It was a great thing. I was part of like the gifted and talented enrichment kind of things where they, if you do well on some tests, then they put you in an extra class. And so this extra class, this enrichment thing was in second grade. And so I remember first time I ever sat down to a computer, I was in second grade, and they had two kinds of computers, the old Apple IIe and the Tandy, the TRS-80. And those were the two computers we have. And they both They both had basic. So like, that's what they taught us. I remember being like 7 years old and learning the basic language, which is, the basic kind of, but now you still like, versions of it, like Visual Basic is used, in the Microsoft products for like their, if you're wanting to code, do some more advanced things with like Excel. Yeah. That language is still around, but yeah, it was that. And then I was 13. So that's what would have been like 7-ish. And so 6 years later, I was 13. I actually got my first computer, got it for Christmas. And it was a Commodore 64 with a cassette tape drive.
Can I tell you my favorite thing about Commodore 64?
Oh, tell me. Oh.
The only reason I really know about Commodore 64 is that it's in the Weird Al Yankovic song. It's all about the Pentiums.
Oh, that's funny.
Have you heard that song?
No.
I'm a huge Weird Al fan.
Me too.
My Commodore 64 is really neato. What kind of chip you got in there? A Dorito? Like, what a great line. What a genius. Right?
That's awesome.
Anyway, so Commodore 64 with a tape drive.
Tape drive, cassette tape drive. And so, but I got a one game with it that they sent me that like, it was sent to me from family afar. Like I was living far away from my family and they sent this gift to me. It was a computer, the tape drive, and a game that was on a floppy disk.
Wow.
It didn't have a floppy drive. It just had a tape drive. So I had nothing. I had no third party software. So like I remember that summer, like
you didn't just download an emulator from the Wi-Fi?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not like in 1986 or whatever. This was really in 1986, 1987. The Wi-Fi was not we had phones that were like attached to the wall and you had a little rotary dial on it. I mean, that was
When you were 13, you get a Commodore 64, you got a tape drive, you've got a game, you're doing that stuff. Did you at that time think to yourself, I like technology, like I want to be involved in technology? Did you get like a technology bug early on?
Like when I was 7 years old and sat down to an Apple IIe TRS-80, they immediately made sense to me. And
really?
So I was really into it. And I think I'm lucky because I'm at the age, like I'm 47. And so I'm at the age where not every kid that I went to school with sat down. Like my contemporaries didn't have their first computer experience when they were 6 or 7 years old. They were, 13, 14, 15 years old. And I think there's a huge difference there. Like my career now is very kind of oriented towards digital technology. And I think I wouldn't be in that place if I had not had that very early experience and exposure to the technology.
Wow. Yeah. Like that's incredible. Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm kind of like the first wave of digital native people.
Now that's interesting. The first wave of digital native people. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, well, as we progress further in the timeline of technology first, I want to come back to that idea because that's a very interesting comment.
But what was your first computer?
So my dad was a database analyst for an oil and gas company. Nice. One of the big ones at the time in the 80s and 90s. And so as a database analyst and database administrator, as basically just about as early as I can remember, it wasn't from like my first memories, but very early in elementary school, we had a computer in the home, and I believe it was even connected to the internet, of course, through dial-up. Mm-hmm. And so there was a computer in the home, but it wasn't anything that we used. It wasn't anything that we really interacted with. I do remember in school that like during like some math specials rotation, I remember like we would go to the computer lab, right? And there was a computer lab, mm-hmm. and we played games, right? And it was you answer the math question and like Mario or somebody jumps, right? Mm-hmm. Or you type and you hit the right letter and somebody, jumps and moves. So I remember math games being or maybe just games in general on the computer being the first real interaction that I can remember. Yeah. And honestly, for me, that was probably third or fourth grade. So we're thinking, 94, 95, something like that, right? Is my first, I'm getting in front of a computer and doing keyboard. At least that's the first I can remember. It's really funny going even before the computer. I had this really interesting experience. My grandparents lived about 30, 45 minutes from me when I was growing up at around this time, elementary school. And in their upstairs in the guest room, they had, I don't know if it was grandpa's from his office or grandma's from her time as the secretary, old school typewriter. Mm-hmm. And they would have that and I would just we would just get up there and play on it, right? Banging on the keys and all the rest of that, right? So first keyboard experience was on the typewriter, where I've never typed a single letter in my life for real. I've just knocked on the keys. But first actual computer experience, probably playing games during some sort of math specials time in elementary school, 3rd or 4th grade.
Nice.
Yeah.
Keyboarding typing course was the only class I ever flunked in high school.
Was it really?
I got an F. Yeah.
You got an F in keyboard?
I got an F. And I still went to college on scholarship, but I just couldn't. I literally it was ninth grade, and it was like literally it was like 45 minutes or 50 minutes of sitting there just going J Y F T, like click, and I just could not handle it. Like I was bored, and so I acted out.
So you acted out? Oh man. Well, let's. I want to put a pin on that topic as well, and come back to that at another time. What does that look? What does Jake Fisher acting out in high school look like? That would be a fun conversation. So the first computer I had that was like my computer, I had a computer in my room. It was probably middle school, and I had some games. I had some game where, you're in a little rocket ship and you're in space and you're shooting asteroids as they're flying at you. And it had some good kind of navigation to it. And then I don't remember what it was, but my dad taught me something about like naming file structures with like basic code, right? And organizing information in files, right? So there's some early thing that I did where it's like, food is a directory, and then fruits is a subdirectory, and then grapes is a subdirectory off of that, right? And then just like learning how to make that. I did that sometime in middle school. And I think there was some bigger, wider reason for all that. I don't remember. I just remember making a folder called grapes. And I remember it was part of some directory structure. But like as a database analyst, like that's the kind of thing that you would do, right? You'd figure out logical ways to organize data and then how to retrieve it, right? And then later I had a Compaq Presario, I think. And and I think it had like 990 megabytes of like hard disk space, right? It was less than a gigabyte of hard disk space. It was like some leftover computer. It was like 2 or 3 generations back from the one that was given, for work, right? And anyways, lots of interest.
Was the Presario have like an Intel, one of the Intel 86? That kind of that line of processors, because it was like the 8086, the 286, 386, 486, and then the Pentium chips came, and then I don't think it was the naming conventions.
I don't think it was a Pentium chip. I think it must have been whatever was before that, but I don't remember exactly. Yeah.
Mine was when I was 16. I got one. It was the first computer in high school outside of the Commodore 64. It was a more traditional, really what would you think of as I think is the really it's a computer that doesn't hook up to your TV. It's actually has a monitor, and it was a clone computer, which were really big at the time, but it was the 286 processor with a 40 megabyte hard drive and a turbo button.
A turbo button?
Yeah. You ever see a turbo button on these computers?
I've seen one like in a James Bond movie in the car.
They literally had a button. It has a button on the front of the case that said turbo. And so what that did and so it's kind of stupid. What it was, it was a switch that changed the clock speed down from like 12 megahertz to 8 megahertz or vice versa. And so the reason they had that was because there was a lot of software that was designed to work on a slow clock, like a slow processor clock, like you had with an XT, which is what they called the 086s. It was the XT, and then the AT was the 286. And so what happened was when they had these faster machines, all that software would run super fast. And if it was a game, it's like you started the game and you're dead. Like you didn't have time to react. So they had that button to slow the processor down, slow the clock down.
That reminds me, one of the things that was such a source of stress in my life as a high schooler playing video games on computers and online. And it was such a source of stress. It was like a central thing that I thought about. It consumed my mind all the time was lag. Frame rate and lag and dial-up speed. And like, what's your FPS, your frame rate per second or whatever it was. And what's your megabytes per second of your connection. Yeah. And then how does that impact your play on Diablo 2? the expansion pack, right? Like that was like a big part of my high school life is just the stress around that not being optimal, right?
Was that dial? So was your connection dial up?
My connection was dial up for a long time.
How fast was your modem? Do you remember?
Oh, geez. I used to be able to know all this, right? On command. Yeah. I have no idea even now. But I remember like you download things and what was it, megabytes per second or something like that, right? That was the ratio you would look at and think about, right? And then I remember like I had my brother was older and he had like a friend or two that was a year older than him, and they, went to OU, right? So I'm like either a freshman in high school or an eighth grader, right? And so these older friends are talking about, oh yeah, well I'm at OU and they have a T1 line. Oh yeah. I can download a song in 2 minutes, right? Or 1 minute, right? You're like, oh my gosh, can you really?
Yeah. I remember the T1. That was a big deal. Having a T1 line was like, oh.
So when was your first like connected computer experience, and is that different than your first connection to
that was internet? Really early. That was whenever I was probably 15, 16 years old. I had that 286 computer, and the thing that was big then, we didn't really have the internet. Like it wasn't the World Wide Web wasn't a thing necessarily at that point in time. That would have been like 88, probably 89,
and that's
something
early.
Like that.
Yeah.
And so it was, so we had some dial up. There were local BBSs, so there were the bulletin board services, literally a computer that was just connected to a modem and a phone line, and you could call it up, and then you could pass messages with other people, and then you'd be on there for 15 or 20 minutes and then drop off, and nobody could connect to it while you were on. You had to get off. There was a really early kind of message passing protocol or network called FidoNet. That was a really big deal. So like if you were, say, there were 20 bulletin board, BBSs that you could call in greater Oklahoma or something. You could call one, you could leave a message for someone that would be a member of another BBS somewhere else. But if they were on the FidoNet, then they could pass that message. So you could actually pass messages to people, like it was very early email through FidoNet. But it'd take like a day, because like all the FidoNets have to call the main FidoNet server, and like that happens in the middle of the night, and they pass all the information. It was cool.
So in your early connected computer experience days, I'm assuming you started with dial-up, probably like most people.
Yeah.
And then what we had for a short period of time is that the dial-up was on the same phone line as your like home phone, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the dial-up on a different phone line from your home phone, right? So you've got two different numbers. You've got the dial-up number for your internet, and then you have your home phone number, right? And only one person could be online at a time, right? So if I wanted to go online and chat on AOL or whatever it was, right? No one else could do that. Not that there was, like we have today with phones and computers and everything else all being connected devices, right? But all of those things, right, playing into whether or not you can get online, which are just limitations that don't exist now for the most part.
I remember the thing after that, and I got whenever I was probably in my mid 20s. So it would have been mid 90s, probably 97, 96, 97, 98 was a kind of high speed internet that actually used your phone lines, but it used the phone lines at the same time as you could talk on the phone, but you had to put a filter on it, on the phone, an audio filter, because it was super high frequency in the audio spectrum, and it was really high. And so if you didn't have that on there, you could hear the little squeaking. But if you put little filters on your phones and it filtered out, it was a high pass filter, filtered out that, you could actually be on your computer and on the phone at the same time. And my recollection is that service was known as DSL.
DSL?
Yeah.
So I remember DSL. I knew that some people had DSL and it was faster and whatever than dial-up, but I never really knew what DSL was. I know there's DSL and cable, and that's all I knew. I never really digged into it.
Man, I remember
the technology behind it.
I got my first DSL line. I was living by myself. I was living in a little duplex on the very southern edge of a really nice historical district here in town. And I was living in the rented duplex. I wasn't. But I remember when I got DSL. I wanted to say it was like a $27 bill or something. Man, this is expensive, but I got to get this. This is awesome. And that's where, man, it was great. Like it was amazing. It was so great. Such a neat deal.
Yeah. Hey, so early on, so connected to the internet.
Yeah.
What was your first experience with email?
AOL. I think like a lot of people, you've got mail. So
I had Yahoo. That was my first email address. I don't know if you remember the name of your first email handle, but mine at the time, I was selling candy at school through like band fundraisers, but then I'd keep like the box that the band fundraiser candy or whatever it was, fundraiser candy was in. And then you'd go down to the local store and buy 4 candy bars for $1. And then you'd sell them at school for $1 out of the fundraiser box and make a 75-cent profit. And so my first email handle was Candy Tycoon.
That's amazing. I love
Candy Tycoon. That was my first email handle. Do you know what yours was?
Okay, so I remember. I don't know if it was my first one, but I remember it was one of them. And so I don't remember if it was AOL. I don't think it was AOL. This may have been after AOL. But so I was under the impression at the time, being a young man, that that like my email handle address, that handle, that name should be similar to or comparable to what my biker name would be.
Your biker name? What does that even mean?
So, so my name is Jake Fisher. And so what I did is I made it Snake Fish.
Oh,
exactly. I mean, I was a nerd. Big old nerd. Snake Fish. I'm a nerd. I'm a total nerd, man. I'm a total nerd. Because that's what people would call me. People call me Jake the Snake. Because if your name's Jake, people would call you that. That's like that is a law.
It's a trope.
That is a rule.
Yeah.
And Fisher, obviously my last name. So I just was like, I'm just giving my biker name. Little did I know I was going to need that shit for like resumes and stuff,
Okay, so that's funny because when I got to, when I was in undergrad and I spent time with university people and university officials and all that.
Yeah.
One of the university officials I knew made an offhand comment one day about how like all these kids applying for college, they create email addresses and they're part of their applications. And I don't think they realize how it comes off. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's like bikini body, sexy tan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at yahoo.com. Right. Yeah. It's like, are you sure? Like, that's what you want on your professional thing. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's early in the days of thinking about your digital footprint.
Yeah, totally.
And caring about your digital footprint, right? And curating and thinking intentionally about that, not just like what's kind of cool, Jake the snake, Jake the fish. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was it? Snakefish. Yeah. Snakefish, right? But who knows what you want to do in 30 years, right? Do you want to be
exactly right.
a politician, right? If somebody go back and say snakefish, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is what it is, man. We all have those cringy moments in our past. What?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say what, so yours was, say yours again, because it was Tycoon. It was Candy Tycoon. Candy Tycoon. Yes. I think that is like foreshadowing.
If I had only stuck with that business, oh my gosh, I'd be retired now.
Yeah, you're kind of a tycoon already. So, I mean.
Well, yeah, there you go. Trying.
That's awesome. Yeah, just not candy anymore. So.
Not candy anymore.
Yeah. So
just enterprise software sales. If you need software development services, by the way, call me.
Awesome. Yes, please do. So search engine. What was your first search engine that you remember?
Man, so I remember early on, was there like Alta Vista? Was that a thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was one of mine. Yeah, totally.
And then was there something like Dog something?
Yeah. The ones I remember are like Alta Vista, Lycos, maybe Lycos. They have a dog.
Lycos. No. Was there Dog Pile? Was that a thing?
That does not ring a bell, but there's somebody probably listening going, yeah, I totally remember that.
Yeah, that's right.
Was it? I don't know. Ask Jeeves. Ask Jeeves was one that I remember.
Ask Jeeves. Yeah. Yep. And then I remember being just blown away initially when you use Google, and it says 1 million results in 0.37 seconds.
Yeah.
And like whoever came up with the idea of putting that totally unnecessary fact on the search results, that person is brilliant.
Yeah.
Because that is so impactful. right? You're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And it's like that episode. I don't know if you ever watched Mad Men, right? But it's one of the early episodes of Mad Men where Don Draper has like this moment of inspiration when he's selling to the tobacco folks and they're facing all sorts of regulations. And they're like, we can't say it's got health benefits. We can't say this. We can't say that. What can we say? And he's got nothing until the last second. And then he says, everyone's faced with the same problem. Let's just talk about what you do. Right. And he says, how do you make your tobacco? And the guy's like, well, we Kentucky sun and soil and blah, blah, blah. Then we toast it. He goes, okay, there you go. There's your line. Your tobacco's toasted. And they're like, well, everyone's tobacco's toasted. And he's like, no, everyone else's tobacco causes cancer. Yours is toasted. Right. In the same way, I would imagine everyone else's search engine produces results very quickly. Yeah. But theirs, because they call it out, you know it. Right. And you remember it for that. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't. Maybe they weren't as fast. Maybe Google legitimately was faster. But I'll never know because they never display the results.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Google's an interesting story. And I've obviously, because of my job, what I do for a living, spent a lot of time studying Google and the history and kind of how that company is developed. And it's interesting because it actually, so they were not like, it did not launch like Alta Vista, Lycos, Ask Jeeves, all of those were before, were search engines that were popular before Google was even invented. And so there was a couple of guys, Stanford grad students that built a kind of a rudimentary search engine on the Stanford campus, like one of the servers, and it was called Backrub. No idea why it was called that, but that's what they called it. And then, as people really got,
I know why it was called that. Do you know why?
No, I don't.
They thought it would impress a girl. I almost guarantee you. I fucking guarantee you that they thought it would impress a girl.
Hey, I'm guarantee you that there are some things they did later on that impressed a lot of people.
That's true.
But these guys were like, people were taking advantage of these search engines like crazy. Like they were doing all kinds of nefarious stuff, like, doing everything they can to game the system in order to come up at the top of these organic search rankings when they didn't really deserve it. Like, and so these two guys, the Backrub guys, wrote their thesis, their big research project was basically about how to build a better search engine, one that cannot be as easily tricked or gamed or cheated by people that were at the time were kind of the burgeoning black hat search engine optimization folks. And so they took that research, turned it into another search engine that was actually on the Stanford server as well for a little while, and it was called Google. They had reserved the google.com as a misspelling of the name or the number of Google, GOOGOL, and so that's how Google started. It was literally a reaction against subs, what they felt like were Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the two founders, thought was a real weakness of the search engine market. And now they're like the big 900-pound gorilla. Like 95% of general informational searches are done on Google.
It's incredible. Yeah. Man, that's wild. Hey, do you remember your first social media platform? Like, what was the first account where you got in?
Yeah, I was buddies with Tom, man. Me and Tom were friends. MySpace Tom.
Oh, really? I was never a MySpace guy, so I don't know anything about it, really.
Yeah, frankly, it's really similar. Like Facebook became really what MySpace was. It was kind of an interesting thing. Like it was a lot of the same, like MySpace did a lot of those same things that I think people liked Facebook for at the very beginning, because it was a way to connect to people. Like if it was your first social media, I was connecting with old classmates, and I remember getting a real big kick out of like being able to see like what the kids that I went to high school with are doing now, and like actually reconnecting with some people. So that's what MySpace was. And then I remember my recollection is Facebook at the time was only available to people like first of all, it was only EDU. You had to have an EDU.
Specific colleges at first, and then it was a big deal when it opened up to your university.
That's right.
And so it rolled out and phased out. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I was not in college at the time. I was already out of college. And so I did not get a chance to be at one of the early Facebookers, but the MySpace was a thing, man. And it was really big. And then like a year later, it was not.
You know what's funny? So when I was in high school, I had a Zanga account, which was like blogging platform essentially.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
I've never heard of this thing.
You've never heard of Zanga?
Never heard of it.
Xanga, Zanga.
Okay.
Man, that was the bomb. And so you'd write your blogs and you'd put all sorts of, high school emotive things on there. And one of the interesting features was, and of course now it would be like, it's anathema, right? It's horrible to do this. But at the time it was so cool. You could select a song that would play when people came to your site.
Yeah.
Right. So of course you have some sort of song that's of course really emotive and whatever, right? That people are going to hear when they arrive at your site. Oh my God. It was probably, I don't know, some bullshit. I don't know. It was some emo bullshit. I don't know. But you'd write all these things. And I remember creating like Zanga aliases so that I could go have arguments on people's pages about things and take like really hardcore positions on things. It was really weird and unnecessary, but that was what I did. I did that during college actually. And then Facebook. So I was in college when Facebook hit. And so I was part of that group of people that was like, oh my gosh, we're in now, we're in. And then I was also part of that group of people that then hated when they opened it up to high school kids. Right. It was so annoying. Right. That was like the feeling at the time. Oh my gosh, high school kids can have it now. Jeez. Right. And I don't know if you remember the moment, but I remember like timelines happened. And you're like, God, I hate timelines. And now you love timelines. Oh, yeah. Right? Yeah. But they definitely kept producing features, right, that you hated at first, but then you ended up loving. At least that's how I felt about it.
Yeah. And I feel like it's not like what Facebook is now is so very different than what it was back then. It's just it's a different thing. And it's funny. We think about it like my age at 47. Like I look back and think, man, Facebook, that's a young person's thing. And the truth of the matter is of all of the social media, main social media platforms, Facebook is the one where the old people are. Like if you need old people, if your marketing, strategy involves people that are in their 40s, 50s and older, you got to be on the Facebook.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Notice I call it the Facebook.
That's what it was at first, thefacebook.com, right? Yeah. And it became Facebook.
That's not why I said it though. I call Google the Google too, just out of principle.
I think that could be wrapped up in this whole idea of Jake-splaining things.
Yeah, probably.
I think it's all connected. I think it's all connected together.
Man, I got to check out that Zanga. I missed that. So
I'm gonna see if I can find my old Zanga and I'll send it to you, and then we can just all be embarrassed together about the things I put online.
I love it. Did you have my recollection, like early on, there were 3 websites that when I finally, I really started to gravitate to. The first one was called Fark, FARK.com, which was very funny. And it's just, all it was aggregated stories, but they were all funny. So it was like this aggregated list of funny stories. And then from there, like Fark, but even more than Fark, like so much more than Fark, but similar was Dig. You ever remember Dig, dig.com, digg.com?
I don't remember dig.com.
Man, its thing, so the thing with dig.com was, and what was real revolutionary about it, again, it was like just stories that you would go read. It was like curating a list of stories, and some of them can be very entertaining and funny, but there was voting. And so you would vote. Each would put a link, everybody would put a link on there. That link you could vote up and down. And so like the real popular stuff went to the top and the stuff that wasn't didn't,
like Reddit.
Exactly. Reddit came along after Dig. Reddit saw what Dig was doing and goes, oh, I think we can do this better. And they did.
Man.
And so Reddit's huge now. Like Reddit is still a massive, their Wall Street Bets community is manipulating the stock market for the common man. I mean, they're changing the world. Dig, not so much.
Not so much.
Yeah. Yeah. You've never heard of it.
You said Dig, and that reminded me of this game Dig Dug. That was like an early computer game that I played all the time. Do you remember Dig Dug?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Oh, man, that's funny. Okay, so super early on, before Facebook, before a lot of the rest of this, there was some early website that I got introduced to somehow. I have no idea even how, but it would show you information about upcoming movies that were about to come out. I don't think it was IMDb. I think it was just some page where somebody would post information. Here are the movies that are coming out in 98. Here are the movies coming out in 99. And it would just give you like synopsis of what those were. I loved that. I would read that and I would just be so interested in that. And like getting that, felt like insider information, right? That of course was available publicly on the web for any kid in their teen years to find. But like I thought, I absolutely love that. And I love going to the movies. And so, man, that was incredible. But that was one of my first exposures, honestly, to the internet. It was really that website and being like, wow, this is really valuable.
That's cool. And
then I'll tell you, like, I don't know what your first exposure to YouTube was. And when you first found out about YouTube and got excited about YouTube, I know exactly what mine was. It was the Mentos challenge. Do you remember the Mentos and Diet Coke or whatever it was?
Yeah.
And people would put Mentos and Diet Coke and they explode, right, and fly through the air. That was when, like, I felt like I really got to understand what YouTube was and that YouTube, like, started blowing up. Like, in my mind, I connect those two things. I don't know if they're actually connected or not, but in my mind, they are.
Interesting. I was not a YouTube fan at first. When I first saw it, I was like, I remember watching this going, this is just like my neighbor walking around his backyard. What the hell do I want to watch this for? Like, I didn't really like it. And now I watch a ton of YouTube. I've got it, I've got it on the Apple TV. And so, like, I'm really into, like, it's a great place to learn stuff. Like, I've learned more. I'm an old musician. I was I wrote songs and was really into that in school, and I hadn't done that in a long time. And when the pandemic hit, I was like, man, I gotta find stuff to keep my mind busy. And so I re-engaged with that topic. And there's a ton of great, like, kind of music theorists and just folks that are giving great lessons on YouTube for free. And I support them. I support a bunch of them on Patreon because these guys are making tremendous content.
You're a Patreon member to some folks, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I've got some regular, like, gaming content creators that I watch that I'm interested in. Like, I love their content. I'm not a Patreon member, and I don't know if I should feel guilty about that or not. But, like, I watch all the videos. I subscribe. I don't like all the time, but I like sometimes, right? But that's one of the economics of it now is all the ways all these individuals have created the content that's really just as valuable in some ways as Netflix content. Right?
Oh, sure.
Like, how much time do I spend on YouTube per week compared to Netflix? I'm probably on YouTube more, right?
I am. I totally am.
You know what's funny? What I'm into right now, like this moment, I am totally into old Johnny Carson clips and episodes.
Yes, I love that stuff.
Like, and so then once you watch 3 or 4, then it starts recommending stuff. Then you find all this new stuff, right? Because their AI engine or whatever is brilliant, right? So I watched 3 or 4 or 5 like funny. It started with Johnny Carson and Don Rickles. Like those interviews are hilarious.
Oh, right? And Rickles is like the best. He is the best comic, like insult comic of all time. I love it.
Oh my gosh, right? So then it's Johnny Carson and Rodney Dangerfield, right? So then it's like, oh my God, that's incredible, right? Yeah. And then it's just general Johnny, right? Yeah, and then it's like, here's Johnny Carson bombing on a monologue, but then still making it funny, right? So you watch that, you're like, oh my God, that's hilarious. Yeah. And now it just shoots that stuff to my feed, and I'm like, yes, give me this content. I love it.
Yep.
It's discovering all these new things.
Yep.
All of this is to say is the internet solved all the world's problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Caused a few though.
Oh, it's caused a few.
Let's be honest. I mean, Hey, so the old TV YouTube stuff I like to watch is an old game show that was very funny and very kind of like genteel. All of the people involved wore like, night, like they were out for a night, on the town, lovely clothes, tuxedo suit or whatever. Yeah, very classy. And it was called What's My Line?
Oh, I've heard of that, but I've never watched it.
Yeah,
heard of it.
So it's like, and it's a reference to a line of work, and so they'll have somebody come in, sit down, and then there are four kind of celebrity inquisitors, panelists that ask yes or no questions to try to figure out what this person does for a living. And so they can only get 10 wrong, and then in every game they would have like a celebrity, that would come on, and all the panelists would be blindfolded, and the celebrity would come in, and they'd have to figure out who the celebrity is. Johnny Carson's has been on that a lot. It was, as a matter of fact, there was one episode where he was the celebrity guest, and at the very end, the host of the show was like, "Hey, congratulations on taking over for Jack Parr, coming up this summer." And I was like, "Yep." That was right before the Tonight Show, before he took the Tonight Show.
That was one of the clips that recommended me today that I watched. Was Johnny Carson actually interviewing Jack Parr on the Tonight Show near the end of his run on the Tonight Show. I don't know if this is interesting to anyone else in the world to hear me talk about this, but God, that was very interesting.
Yeah. Jack Parr walked out. I think when he quit that job, he just walked out. He didn't I don't think it was I don't know that it was necessarily he got mad about something and just said, I'm out. He walked off the set, walked out, and didn't come back.
You know what's funny, and it has a lot of, I think, similarities to present day, which is, and Jack Parr referenced this in this interview that I just watched today, which was that Jack Parr made almost no money being host of the Tonight Show.
That'd be a reason to walk out.
And Johnny Carson is famous for the negotiations that he made, where he made tremendous amounts of money. He made amounts of money that today would be tremendous amounts of money.
Yeah.
In his last, 10 years hosting the Tonight Show. And he had ownership in the production company. He had ownership of, I believe, part of the late night show that Dave Letterman did.
Yeah.
Right. He had ownership of the hour that came after his show. And he just made tremendous amounts of money. And he would do the show 3-4 nights a week. And then he'd have guest hosts and all the rest of that. And he had 3 months off or something like that. Right.
Yep.
Man, that's so much like how people, in the early stages of the internet, they built audiences, they built products, they built value, they built a business model. And then other people figured out how to actually make the business models work, which is a really good lesson. It doesn't matter sometimes just that you have a good product. It's that you know how to monetize that good product.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have the best product in the world. If you're not skilled in monetizing that product, you've got to find a way to partner with somebody who does.
Yeah.
Because there's somebody who doesn't have that creative talent necessarily that you do. There might be somebody who has a creative talent, and then you have the business acumen. Man, if you can put those two things together in one person, congratulations, you're a unicorn, you're amazing. But I think oftentimes people need a combination of people, or at least a model that comes before them so they can make that happen.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that makes sense, or if that's just
it
me.
Totally does. No, it totally does. I mean, it's important to get we talk about this a lot. Got to get the right people in the right seats on the bus, and you can have all the right people, but if you got them in the wrong seats, that's not good. You need the right people in the right seats. And that's something that I learned early on. I had guys, people that were influential to me. I mean, my very first boss was telling me this. She was a woman named Heather Heinz. And she was my boss when I was in college, my kind of really first actual job that wasn't, it was actual job at a place. And she would always say that to me. She would say, the key is you got to get the right people in the right place. And that seems to be universal.
Absolutely.
I think one of the best, this is going to sound stupid. I think one of my best professional strengths is I know what my weaknesses are, because I got a lot of them, And so you try to, the key is put yourself in a situation. I try to put myself in a situation with people who offset my weaknesses and also can benefit from my strengths. We don't necessarily have the same strengths. And I think that kind of thing is really important.
Absolutely.
Having that kind of fit. So anyway,
man. Now, I'll tell you what, we wanted just to talk about technology. And now we wound up talking about something meaningful. How did we do that? That wasn't on purpose.
Yeah,
that was an accident.
I know, right? That's okay though. It's not bad to talk about something meaningful every once in a while,
Is it just because we're such deep, spiritual, cognizant souls? Is that what it is, Jake? Is that why we did that?
I would never claim to be one of those. I'm just a guy that's been around. I've been around for longer than I look. So, and but my hair is going. I was looking at that yesterday. I'm going to have to get I need the Ron Popeil, the spray
can.
I need some spray. Yeah. I need to spray down some of this scalp.
You know what, Jake? Don't do it. Just own it. Just own it.
Just shave it off.
Shave it off and own it, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I've got a picture of me, completely shaved head, long beard, shaved head, standing next to what's his name? Really famous MMA fighter that's retired now. It's that was one of the famous people that I had a chance to meet. He's so famous I can't remember his name.
Chuck Liddell or something like that, or
one of those guys. Like
that's
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah,
fun
one
stuff.
Of those guys. I don't know why I said that. I don't know.
because it's nostalgic.
It is
and wonderful.
It is, and this has been fun, Mike.
This is really fun. It's fantastic.
So you want me to go ahead and go ahead?
Yeah. What's the name of this podcast again?
It is
Jake Explaining?
It is not Jake Explaining. It's the Talky podcast, where we talk about the world of sales, marketing, technology, business, strategy, entrepreneurship, and other stuff we don't know anything about because it's just fun to talk about. We sort of hit on those, but we mainly just talk.
Like physics. We don't know anything. We don't know anything about physics. I don't know anything about physics.
No, I don't either. I just know don't drop stuff out my window like off the fourth floor. Like I got that down. I got the basic,
Right. I took chemistry. I took computer science. I took calculus. I did not take physics, which is probably why I don't understand why a bowling ball and a feather don't drop at the same rate.
That might be why. I did not take chemistry, but I've definitely benefited from chemistry as an adult. Better living through.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I'm on I got like I've told you I got all the fat guy remedy, the maladies. I've got the high blood pressure and the diabetes, and I got the whole thing. So I take tons of pills.
Chemistry or pharmacology or both?
Well, whatever, Yeah. It's all kind of the same,
Applied chemistry.
That's right.
Right.
Nice. All right. So if people are interested in kind of following us or getting more information about us, we're online. The website's talkytalkypod.com. And obviously we're all over the finest podcasts are consumed. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, we were talking about that a few minutes ago. Feel free to hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button. However you are getting this podcast, we are producing shows just as quickly as we can. Mike, you can catch him on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/Slack Mike. Again, linkedin.com/in/Slack Mike. And I am on Twitter. The fun account is just at Jake Fisher, JAKEFISHER.
Thank you for mentioning the funny account.
That's the fun account.
That's
where that's where we get in trouble, and I have to occasionally apologize to people. So, for being anyway, Mike, this was fun.
Really fun. Jake, thanks so much.
Thank you.